Dexcom G7 continuous glucose monitor. I heard a lot of criticism lately about the G7.
G7 that came out in 2023 and the G7 that we have now in late 2025, very, very different.
Come on, people. I feel these are the best sensors on the market.
More stuff is coming to the Dexcom G7.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Diabetes Unlocked podcast. I'm Tom.
And I'm Christelle, and between us we have over 60 years of experience living with type 1 diabetes.
And in this episode, we'll be sharing our real-life experience with the Dexcom G7 continuous glucose monitor.
That is true. We have tested a lot of CGM's continuous glucose monitors between us, and right now Dexcom G7 is actually my favorite CGM. So we'll talk more about that. We'll talk about what works, what does not work, because this sensor is good, I think, but it definitely has some quirks.
That's right. So if you're curious about the G7, or if you just want to hear a conversation between two people who used it in real life, then this episode is for you. So let's get into it, Crystal.
Absolutely. It's funny, with Dexcom G7, I think I was one of the first, I guess, in the States to try the G7. Not try, but actually start using it. It became FDA cleared in 2022, December of 22. And I started wearing it right when it became commercially available in February of 23. Actually, I had my first YouTube about it in March of 23. So I got on that sensor, and it definitely had some issues in the beginning. Still has some issues, but I think it's a great choice. What I love about CGM sort of in general, and I want to get your opinion on this as well, Tom, is that, well, they measure your blood sugars in the fluid underneath your skin and sends the reading to a receiver or your phone. So for me, it allows me to keep track of my blood sugars in real time, 24/7, and it also alerts me. So I think that's probably the main benefit for me when it comes to CGMs. What would you say are your top benefits?
I think it's the same for me. It's just a real-time visibility into the data. I think all CGMs have this, but some are better than others. G7, I would also put it in very high in the ranking. By the way, I was also one of those people who used it really early, because I think it was first launched in Europe, and I got two of them from Dexcom directly to test them and make a YouTube video about it. So I think I was amongst the very first people to use it. But just to make it clear, we're not sponsored by Dexcom. We're just talking about this in this podcast just to share our opinion. Although I got some of the free sensors in the past, this video is just our real life experience. And right now I'm not using the G7. I actually went back to G6 because I just like it better. I realized, okay, G7 is good, but I like G6 better. So we can also talk about why that is. I just want to highlight a few quick facts about the G7, the key features. So right now it's a 10-day CGM sensor. The readings updates every 5 minutes on the phone, in the app, on the reader, or on the watch. So it can actually send data to 3 different devices at a time, which I think is really great. And it's approved for basically all people living with diabetes of the age of 2 and older. So just to get our audience an idea who can use it and who it is meant for. But I don't want to get too into the technical details right now, because we want to talk mainly about our experience. So I was thinking maybe we could start with application, or we just talk whatever comes to our mind. So take it away, Crystal.
Well, I do want to add to the 10-day. It's a 10-day wear sensor right now, but it's actually a 10-day 12-hour. I don't think they can market it as that, because they give you a 12-hour grace period, which basically means you just get 12 extra hours of wear time where it's not covered, in the sense if it fails during those 12 hours, you can't get a replacement. And they have submitted for 15-day wear. I think that's coming soon. According to the news, that should be coming later this year. And since we're already end of year, it should be coming soon. Exactly. That's the main thing.
I think the FDA in the US approved the extension to 15 days. Now it is September when we are recording. Dexcom said in the second half of 2025, those new sensors that will have 15-day lifetime will be already available. But right now, as we are talking, they're not yet available. So just to clarify on that, and you are very correct. There is this half a day extra grace period at the end of the sensor lifetime. And it's actually a great, you can use that time in different ways. I think we might get into it as well, because I might be using it different way than you do. But I think this extra half a day is actually a pretty nice feature that allows me to do a little bit extra with the G7 that I cannot do with other sensors.
Do you know if the new 15 days, so first of all, it's not a new sensor, it's the same sensor that's just being extended to 15 days. Do you know if it's going to be 15 days plus 12 hours, or we're just going to get 15 days? Actually, I knew the answer to that, because that means right now, Freestyle Libre 3 Plus is a 15-day sensor. And right now they claim to be the longest lasting sensor, but Dexcom's like, hey, we're going to be the longest lasting sensor now because it'll be 15 days plus 12 hours. Yeah, interesting. That's going to be fun to experiment with. When I first started using the Dexcom G7, what I was really excited about as well was that it's an all-in-one applicator. So with Dexcom G6, I used that before. Are you going to show it to the people who are viewing? I love it.
Yes.
But with Dexcom G6, we had the transmitter that you inserted, or not the transmitter, the sensor that you inserted, and then you click in the transmitter. You have to hold on to the transmitter. This is a one and all, so it's already assembled. There's no separate transmitter and sensor. And you basically just take off the cap, put it on, you're supposed to put it on your arm, and then you click the button. It's easy-ish, I would say. So for me, sometimes I have a hard time actually pushing the button. And I know, because I've been posting about this, there's some folks who have, if they have any issues with their hands, like arthritis or anything like that, it can actually be kind of hard to push down the button. Funny thing is, I had one where I to be recording me trying to insert the sensor, and I could not for the life of me get this sensor to release. I mean, I was pushing that button, I was pushing a button, pushing a button, and you have to like apply a little bit of pressure. And I kept pushing the button, and it took me a good, I don't know, 2 minutes to actually get it to come out. And I was getting frustrated to see it in the video. And then somebody afterwards in the comments like, oh, you just need to apply pressure. I was like, dude, I was applying pressure. Plus, after doing this for a while, I just think some of them are harder to release than others.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, here is the, I think anyone who is watching can see it. There's like a little plastic transparent element here that needs to be pressed against the skin. Otherwise, if you don't press it and you're just pressing the button here, it won't release. You need to press it down so that the transparent piece disappears, and then it only applies. So that's, and I struggle with that too. It's just like I got 2 or 3 sensors in just fine, and then applying the fourth one, and like, why is it not working? Why is it not working? And I just forgot that I need to actually press down before I push the button. So I think we're not the only ones who had this issue, Crystal. But since we're talking about the all-in-one sensor / applicator, I wanted to highlight one more thing. There is this little magnet here. I think it's really hard to see on the camera, but there is a little magnet in the applicator, and there's another magnet in the sensor itself. I was told by Dexcom, and the reason for that is whenever you apply the sensor, these magnets get separated, and the sensor automatically starts the warm-up time. So the warm-up is 30 minutes only, which is already short, but because it starts automatically, it'll also save a little bit of time, because for any other sensors, you have to kind of pair manually the sensor with the app, and here it all happens real time. So you're like, even when you pair it later on, you already have that clock ticking. And so when you pair it later on in the app or on your reader, you would already have maybe 25 minutes or even 20 minutes because some time already passed since you really applied it. So I think that's a really great feature. And I'm just testing another new CGM this week that I don't want to talk about yet, but I noticed that one has the same mechanism. So I think others are, trying to do the same thing because I think it's really user-friendly. You wanted to say something, Crystal?
I was just saying it can be as little as 0 minutes to warm up, right? Because if you insert it more than 30 minutes before you actually, activate it in the receiver or the app, then you have a 0-minute startup. I do think that that's something that we should talk a little bit more about, because I know a lot of people with Dexcom G6, because sensors, any CGM can be somewhat accurate, at least for the first 24 hours. That's kind of part of the labeling. A lot of people were doing, it's called soaking, and they insert the sensor maybe up to 24 hours before to let it sort of get used to the body, so to say, and then they would start it in their receiver or the app. You can definitely do that with Dexcom G7, but the second that you insert it and those two magnets go apart, this sensor starts. So that means that if you insert it and then don't look at the activate in the app until 24 hours later, you're basically not you're not missing out on the 24 hours because it's going to show up in your app, but you won't have that in real time.
Right. I actually do this anyway because I'm one of those people who have issues with inaccurate readings during the first 6, even 12 hours, and that's exactly how I use the grace period. So when I was on G7, I would be ending my first sensor, and then I would apply another one, and then wait half an hour. But even after half an hour, I would still not switch to the other one. I would actually wait like almost like the whole grace period, and that new one was on me. It was already kind of working, running, counting into the lifetime of the new sensor, but I was still using the old one throughout the grace period. And then at the end of the grace period, I would only pair the new sensor with the app. And then I just know that those readings are a lot more reliable for me after, 10, 12 hours. And of course, you could even pair it earlier and then have both of the sensors working kind of at the same time. And there's actually, when you do that, there are two graphs in the app with two separate data from two separate sensors, which is kind of funny. But um, I don't do that. I just noticed that's the case. I hope I'm not just confusing people when I talk about it. Are you following what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely. It basically it picks up on both readings from the old sensor as well as the new one, and then
Right.
puts both of them into your stored data. So you just see two lines that should hopefully be fairly close together, unless one of them is super inaccurate. But do you generally find that Dexcom G7 is inaccurate, or is it? Well, maybe I should add mine first, and then you get to add yours, because most of my sensors are fairly accurate from the start. I've had some issues lately. Also, I've started to do more finger sticks because I've had some trust issues with my Dexcom G7. So I started doing more finger sticks. And that's another benefit of Dexcom G7 is that if you do find that your sensor is inaccurate, and inaccurate is rule of thumb, more than plus minus 20 milligrams per deciliter or 20%, consistently. If it's inaccurate consistently, you can calibrate the sensor and it will adapt to the reading that you put into calibrating. Basically means that you do a finger stick. Let's say that my CGM, my Dexcom G7 says 120, my finger stick says 160. Usually I would do another finger stick just to check that my finger stick is actually on point. And then you can add that 160 into the app or the receiver and then say calibrate, and it will use that reading. But overall, I do trust my Dexcom G7. Again, I do finger sticks, especially in the first 24 hours. I don't find it's inaccurate towards the end. If it's inaccurate, it's usually there in the beginning. And then I actually do trust it. I just think we need to talk a little bit more about accuracy, because I think a lot of people say that it's inaccurate, and I don't necessarily think that their definition of accurate is necessarily the same as Dexcom, or necessarily completely in line with the difference between what's going on in the bloodstream and what's going on in the fluid underneath your skin.
Right. I mean, when I used the G7, it was pretty accurate. I think, except for the initial setup, those initial 12 hours that I don't count almost because I have this issue with the G6 as well. I found it to be more like jittery. Sometimes the readings would be like jumping up and down a little bit more than I was used to from the G6. And actually, probably one of those reasons I went back to the G6, because I just like how it smooths out the readings. And I don't know, I'm not saying like one is right or the other one is wrong. I just like, when I'm using it, I just don't like when there are these jumps. It jumps up and then it jumps back down. I just feel like that must be some sort of algorithm issue, and I didn't like necessarily like that with the G7. It was not happening too frequently, so it's probably not a big deal. I think. I mean, any Dexcom that I used was very reliable, except for the initial period of those initial 12 hours. Um, So I would say, I rely on it. I love that you can calibrate it as well. We surely talked about, because even if I felt okay, it's not accurate, I can go to the app and I can calibrate, and usually that really helps. I mean, I think this feature is super important and super undervalued. Some other sensors don't have this feature, and I think it's something that I really want to have, and that's why I'm using Dexcom. Since it's been a while I used it, I don't have like very specific examples or situations that I would say, oh, it was inaccurate in certain situation. I think I had some compression loss here and there when I lied on the sensor, but nothing dramatic. And I I heard a lot of criticism lately about the G7. It's not, since I'm not using it right now, I don't know if it's justified or like exaggerated, but I just felt the Dexcom has been under a lot of pressure, and I was almost like thinking always, come on, people, these are like, I feel these are the best sensors on the market. Although I prefer the G6 over the G7, I still feel like there's nothing better. So sometimes I felt some of the criticism of like inaccurate readings was not almost like not fair. But I guess I see it from different perspectives because I don't have those issues, and people that have those issues with like inaccurate sensors, I can imagine they are really frustrated. But I would say maybe sometimes you just hear those that are screaming, but you don't hear all those people that are happy. So I mean, it probably goes both ways, that there are some people who are really happy and some people who are unhappy. I feel like I'm getting myself in the rabbit hole, and it will be difficult to get out. So I throw the ball back to you, Crystal. And I just wanted to ask, because I know that you also use other sides than the back of the upper arm that's like sort of cleared for the G7. Do you find it is more accurate there, or why do you do that?
Definitely want to talk about that. First, I want to put a little bow on the accuracy thing. I think you're right. People are in the Dexcom, it's called the Dexcom community, are very vocal. It's often type ones, and we're the ones who are online like yelling and screaming when something isn't working. I also think that the community is really good at praise though. But I mean, we are the ones that are super vocal. Whereas sort of Libre have a way larger base, but it's not necessarily as vocal. Anyway, that's one thing. I do think also when it comes to accuracy, if you expect your Dexcom or Libre or any other CGM to be the same as your finger stick at all time, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because it is not. And that does not mean that the sensor is inaccurate. So I think there might be a misconception there. Is, again, when you do a finger stick, you measure in your blood, where a sensor measures in the fluid underneath the skin. The fluid is about 10, 15 minutes behind the blood. So that means that if blood sugars are changing rapidly, those two numbers should not be the same. They should not, because again, your blood sugars are rising quickly, so you capture that in the finger stick. But the fluid is a little bit behind. It's coming, but it's like it's behind. So that's one thing. Also, again, as I said before, the rule of thumb is plus minus 20%. That's the same thing with finger sticks. Finger sticks meters also have a range where within it's considered accurate. Is it annoying? Sure. Would we prefer exact the same every time? Absolutely. But I think, again, if you expect the two readings to be the same at all times, you're gonna think your CGM is completely useless. The reason why so right now, again, I wear my Dexcom G7 on the back of my arm. Anyone watching, you can see it here. This is where it's FDA clear for, back of the arm in the US. In Europe, it's CE marked for the abdomen as well. For children, it's also FDA cleared for the lower back, I believe, or the upper buttocks. In my opinion, this is all labeling. It's labeling, and it's because Dexcom apply for labeling that fit the highest accuracy numbers. So whenever they did their studies, it's told them that, hey, if we put the back of the arm as the place, and we can claim a mark, MARD, which is the indicator of accuracy of what is like 8 point. Do you remember?
Well, latest is 8.0. When they applied for this 15-day extension, they published 8.0. Before it was 8.2.
Yeah. And I'm guessing, and this is Christelle's guess, maybe this sounds conspiracy theory-ish, you let me know. But my guess that either they didn't test the other locations, like thigh or abs, Or they tested the abdominal and they're like, okay, here, unfortunately, we get a mark that's not as favorable. So that's why we're only going to apply a label for the arm. Because I can tell you, it works just fine on the abdomen. It works just fine on the thigh. It works just fine on the lower back. It's just as accurate. It just allows me to place it. First of all, give my back on my arms a little bit of a rest once in a while. Also, apparently, I'm exceptionally clumsy. I will walk into anything and I'll bump off my sensor. I don't do that if it's on my lower back. So, not endorsed by anything. It's very off-label, but in my experience, you can easily wear it other places in the back of the arm.
Mm-hmm. I was going to show what's in the box, but I think we just moved to another topic. So in the box is also this overtape, right? Which I believe is still required officially. I think you're not using it right now, but officially you should. And there is also some instruction manual, which I can throw away. We don't need that. But I wanted to talk about the overtape because I was just wondering if you found a difference, like when you use it with overtape, does it help maybe, to not knock it off easily, or do you find it's just the same? Because I know at the beginning when G7 was launched, the adhesive was not very strong. It was actually quite weak and it was peeling off very quickly. And then at some point they improved the adhesive, and now the adhesive is actually super strong. But you're still supposed to use the overtape. So I was just wondering, what's your opinion on that overtape conversation?
So I hate with a passion the Dexcom overlay tape with that passion. But I mean, I should also the thing about knocking it off. You're actually right. That's probably also me remembering the first iteration of the sensor, because you are very right. And we should talk more about that, how it's changed, because a lot of the complaints I had in the beginning, I did a whole video just like Dexcom G7, this doesn't work. And that was like all my complaints about the early iteration of Dexcom G7. Right now, they've changed the glue, and this sticks. This is not going anywhere. I have to use severe force to get it off. Actually, if I use a glue remover or if I use body oil, it's easier, but just pulling it off is hard. So I actually find that for the most part, I don't need an overlay tape. And I said I hate that tape with a passion. I love that it's free. I love that it comes in the box. And that's all the positive I have to say about that. Unfortunately, it makes me break out in hives. It gave me like severe burns. So I will never be putting one of these tapes on my body again. But that's me. Not everybody's going to have that reaction. I know a lot of people find it's really hard to apply. It kind of like sticks to itself and then it crumbles into this little hard ball of plastic. I'm going to do a name drop here. I like the skin grip overlay tapes. I think those are superior. It's like a fabric tape, and I can even it's soft enough that I can pull it off halfway through the sensor if I don't want to wear it anymore, and it won't pull off my sensor. So that is my go-to.
Yeah, understood. And so just going back quickly to the application, because I saw on your Instagram or TikTok, I think do you have TikTok? I'm not sure. Tell me if you have TikTok. But I think on your Instagram, this gooseneck, I think you call it gooseneck, where you try to apply the sensor and the filament came out on the other side and you couldn't use it. I never had that. So I was just wondering how that happened, because I feel like that might be a problem during the application that other people might experience. So if you could talk a bit more about that, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Don't go to my TikTok. I don't use it. It would be Instagram that you saw it on. So gooseneck, that's not the official word. I don't know where. I think I got that off of Reddit because I was like, why is this happening? What's going on? And I went, down the rabbit hole of searching, and I found it on Reddit. But basically, yeah, instead of the filament going into the skin, where it's supposed to go under the skin again, measure the blood sugars in the fluid. It folds up during the insertion process and goes through the hole of the sensor and then kind of sticks out. So first of all, I could hear it. It gave a wonky sound when I pushed the button. And I was like, okay, this sounds weird. And then you're supposed to put pressure on the sensor to make it adhere to the skin. And the second I did that, I could feel the little filament sticking out through the hole. It has happened twice for me in the last month and a half. So, and it was not two sensors from the same batch. There's some theories going around on what's going on. And that is Dexcom changed their manufacturing process back early 2025. FDA gave them kind of a warning or a slap on the wrist letter, and then they changed back to their old manufacturing process. So hopefully this is a thing of the past. All sensors manufactured after, I think, March or April of 2025 should be back to the old manufacturing. So my hope, fingers crossed, is that this is over and done with if you're using newer sensors. The good news is that it happened. I was home. I could just go online. I actually go through the app and I requested a replacement. And the interesting part is, and that's why I made that Instagram video, is that now if you go through all the reasons why your sensor has failed, the filament sticking out through the hole of the sensor is one of the options. So that tells me that it's happening enough that Dexcom has now felt the need to put that in as an option in their replacement schedule. Let's call it that. So that it didn't hurt because, again, the sensor did not get inserted. It's not like it was just basically the sensor was sitting on my skin with nothing in underneath the skin.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. I never experienced that. And maybe it's because I didn't use this latest version. I didn't use that. Maybe there's a change in the manufacturing process. Something didn't go right. And maybe I just didn't have a chance to try it out after that. And that's so I was lucky. I avoided that. I think one of the benefits we didn't mention yet, but it's quite obvious when anyone sees it on your arm that the G7 is quite small. I mean, it's still,
Yes.
compared to Libre 3 Plus, which we talked about some time ago, it's still 1.5 times thicker and it's like also bigger. But I think it's quite small, and I know when I was wearing it, I didn't quite feel it. I almost like forget where it is. Of course, you always like in the back of your mind remember, because I usually wear mine on the arm. In the back of my mind, always when I'm taking off the t-shirt, I'm like doing it very carefully. Just from previous experience, I can pull out the sensor easily. But I think I thought it was really great improvement to the G6, although it's still bigger than Libre 3. And when it comes to design, actually, it's what I'm trying to get is it also has different color. Like, can you show them again on the screen, the Libre and Dexcom? Dexcom is like this grayish color, and I was told by the people from Dexcom that they went for this color because it blends with the skin better than any other color. So they said, okay, the reason why we went for this color is because it's a little bit harder to see for like someone looking at you when you have the sensor on your arm. This color just blends with the skin. I don't know if it's true or not. Everybody can make their own opinion on that. But I guess although it's a bit bigger, it might be a little bit more discreet because of that color. But it's with a question mark. I didn't do any like scientific study on that to prove if it's right or if it's just marketing. And you tell me what you think about it. But I think it was an interesting statement or interesting insight.
I don't think either of these really blend with my skin tone. So again, Freestyle Uber 3 and Dexcom G7. I mean, and they should have put a white piece of tape around the sensor.
I'll let them know.
Wait, maybe on like a less tan person? I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. But I do like the size. I do like the form. It's small. And to your point, I don't feel as well. The little filament underneath is super small. It's way smaller than the Libre 3. I can't show that on this camera. But generally, I don't feel wearing it. Given that I run to the gym all the time, I do really have to be careful with like sports bras and stuff like that, getting those on and off without pulling at the sensor. But yeah, it's way smaller than the G6, both in area and in height. So that's a really big plus. That's a really, really big plus. I do want to point out one other thing. As I said before, I feel like this G7 that came out in 2023, early 2023, and the G7 that we have now in late 2025 are two very big sensors. So I think if anyone tried out G7 right when it came out and they're like, nope, we're not doing this, I get it, because back then its signal was awful. Like the signal was awful in the sense that I had signal loss constantly. I see my readings on my phone. I use the app. I would have the app in my pocket, the sensor right next to it, same side, and it would lose signal. It was it was absolutely bonkers. And I think they maybe rushed the G7 to the market a little bit. I don't know. Again, I'm concluding things in my head here, but it had some serious sensor issues. They've updated that. So they updated some things in the sensors. I don't have those issues anymore. There was also, I felt like it was very wonky in the beginning. Back to what you were talking about, the graph was really jumpy. I don't see that to the same degree anymore. So it does seem like they've taken, it doesn't seem like, I know they've made the upgrades because they were very public about that. They made the updates to G7. I do think it's become a better product. There's like almost
Right.
a G7 2.0 or 2.1 rather.
Yeah. So I know they extended the Bluetooth range, which initially was 20 feet or 6 meters to 33 feet or 10 meters. I know they upgraded the adhesive. That's another change they made. I think in terms of this sensor loss issues where people were losing the signal, I think what they also did is they made some changes to the actual app. So it's trying to, whenever it disconnects or whenever people lose signal, so it tries to reconnect faster, not only after 5 minutes, but I think it's after 1 minute. Please take this with a grain of salt, but I feel like this is what I read somewhere, that they improved this. And then you're saying the readings are not so jumpy. That's actually good to hear, because that was, when I think about it, that might have been one of the main reasons why I stick with the G6, because on an AID system, when the pump is taking an action like basically immediately on the latest CGM reading, especially with the app that I'm using that's quite aggressive with insulin delivery, like when I get a jump from 120 to 140 within 5 minutes, then the pump just starts dosing quite a bit of insulin. I didn't want that. And if that 140 is not true, so if that changed, that would be great. I feel like they made some more changes since they released it in 2023, but I don't remember what they were. I remember making a video about it, but I forgot what they were.
They now connect with insulin pumps. So Tandem, it connects with Tandem. It connects with Omnipod 5. Does it connect iLet?
With iLet, yes, it does connect with iLet from Beta Bionics, and with Tandem, it also connects, to both Tandem pumps, so t:slim X2 and Mobi. And here in Europe, if you are in Europe, they also connect with the CAM APS FX, which is the algorithm that the IPSA pump is using to work in a closed loop situation. I think Dexcom is pretty good when it comes to integrations. I feel like they are, they have been first to integrate, and they're trying to share their data or make their data available to others more than Abbott, for example, with the Libre, where I feel like they are more closing in their own environment.
Yeah. Oh, it's also semi-connected with my InPen, my durable insulin pen, in the sense that it's a 2-hour delay,
Right.
but it pulls in the Dexcom G7 readings into the InPen, so I can see it in my analytics. I think we are doing a big miss here, Tom. I just realized we talked about the alerts at all, and that's, in my opinion, one of my sort of favorite things about Dexcom G7. We talk about hardware and all that, but we have not talked about the alarm. So what I really like is that they upgraded their alarm features from the G6. So you can now, the customization is on par with any other CGM on the market, which I think is really important because we're all different and alarm fatigue is a real thing. But being able to do the delay first alert is amazing. What that means.
Maybe explain what it means. Yeah.
Yes. What that means is that I can go in and I can say, hey, if my blood sugar hits my upper limit, let's say 160, I think that's my day high. Anyway, let's say it hits 160. I don't get alerted right away. I get alerted depending on, so I've set the delay alert an hour. That means that if my blood sugar is still above 160 after an hour, then I get that alert. The reason why I've done that, so basically, it's not going to alert me right away. But the reason why I've done that is that during the day, yes, I have a 160 upper limit. If I take my insulin and I quickly go 160 and then come down because I didn't time my insulin and my food, I didn't get the two ways to match, I don't need to be alerted about that. If my blood sugar is going to come down, I only need to get alerted if I didn't take enough insulin, or if for whatever reason something went wrong and the insulin actually didn't get injected, or the insulin's gone fat or something like that, and now I'm actually trending high. So I think that one that's my favorite. Also being able to silence the alarms for up to Is it 6 hours?
For how long can you snooze the alarm?
Hours.
Okay.
You can set it, and that includes urgent lows. I would say generally I want the urgent lows, but I don't want the urgent lows if I know that my sensor is in its warm-up period, meaning that it's super inaccurate. So sometimes it's not the ideal time. Usually I would not recommend inserting a sensor right before bed and then turning it on in the app, because that can mean a whole lovely night of fake alarms, which I'm not a fan of. So if I insert it right before bed and then realize, hey, this sensor needs a little bit of time to get its life together and actually give me active readings, I'll turn on that silence all for the 6 hours. That gives the sensor 6 hours to get its, again, life together and starts giving me accurate readings, and I don't have to be woken up. I love that feature.
I understand. I don't use alarms much. Lately, I just stopped. I mean, I stopped using them about a year ago. I think I told you that. I don't recommend that people don't use alarms, but I just find for me it's okay this way. And my control is good, even with the alarms turned off. But I know there are like also other features that you can kind of customize. I know that Dexcom G7 also has two profiles where you can have different levels set for high alarm, low alarm. Are you using that for, I don't know, for a work day or a weekend day or night or day or anything like that? This profile?
I have a daytime and I have a nighttime alert schedule set. So that simply means that I can customize it saying, well, at night. Okay, so I want to look. If I wake up in the morning and my blood sugars have been running over, and I have a fairly low threshold, I guess, at night, maybe not compared to someone else, but I have my high set at 140 at night because I'm like, and I do not have a delay alert on. I get so annoyed if I wake up in the morning and I've been coasting at 140 all night. I know it's still within reasonable, whatever range, but for me, no, it annoys me. I can get like, really annoyed. So that's why I set that alarm for me, because I would rather be woken up and I can take some insulin, I can do something about it. Your system does it for you, but since I'm in manual load nonstop, I have to do that myself. During the day, I have it set at 160 high with the delay alert, because again, that's only for if I didn't dose my meals right, or if something went wrong. So I think it's different. For me, it's about different needs at different times a day. You can also choose to just have one, or I don't have, well, yes, you can set it for certain days as well. As you said, you can do weekends. I haven't done that. I just have it from, yeah, primary and sleep. Those are the two I have.
Yeah. Okay.
Another thing that's new is you can also alerts. You can also, the other quiet mode, instead of silence all, you can set to vibrate. That just means instead of it doing the full, whenever you have a high or low, it'll vibrate.
Yeah. So I know you're using the G7 app quite a lot, because I'm not really using, and as I said, I'm not wearing G7 right now. I'm back to G6, and because I'm looping, I'm not really using Dexcom's app that much. I just use the Loop app because I can see everything there. But I'm just wondering, like, I think the G7 app is really good. People are very happy about some of these alerts and things. Is there something you would like to see in the future, in case there is someone from Dexcom listening to this great podcast trying to make the app better or fix some issues? Is there anything you would add, or you would like to change?
It's interesting. I use injectable insulins. I use a long-acting and mealtime insulin, but I also use inhaled insulin. We have a whole episode of Afrasa about Afrasa inhaled insulin.
Yeah.
For example, if I want to lock my insulin in the app, I can't distinguish between which kind am I using. It's only assuming that I'm using two, which probably 95%, 98% of people are only using up to two, but still, that would be nice. I think more stuff is coming to the Dexcom G7 app, because they just recently came up with a new feature where they have an AI. You can snap a photo of your food and it'll tell you what's in it. It won't tell you the carb count though. So my guess is that they're going to keep expanding on the app. This is just me guessing again, because if that AI then could start telling you the carb count, then all of a sudden you don't really have to go anywhere else and stay in the Dexcom G7 app. And my guess is that's kind of where they want you to end up, kind of like you're just in your Loop app. they want you to stay in the Dexcom app. So if it could start recognizing cards, if it could start integrating an insulin dosing feature as well, that would be cool. And there was just an announcement, I think last week, that kind of indicate that they're going to move more towards dosing recommendation, but for your long-acting insulin, which is interesting because if you can start right now in the app, not in the app, in the reporting in Clarity, which is the reporting software for Dexcom, you can get off if you have trends. It has like a section where it says your trend is, for example, you're running high overnight, and then you might want to talk to your medical team about adjusting your medication. I think they're going to take that, build on that, and maybe come up with saying, hey, you should increase your insulin or something like that, which is going to be, I think that would be really cool.
Right. I think most of these changes and things that you mentioned might be coming. I think that's to do with AI. I feel like the companies are able to utilize AI to come up with these like better pattern recognition and some suggestions to what we can do as users. You actually brought up the one with logging food. I think that's the smart food logging, right? And I never used it. I think we don't have it yet even in Europe. And so what you can do is take a picture of your meal. It will tell you what it is, and you can. I assume you can save it in the app so that later on you see what you ate. I think that's pretty good. It just doesn't tell you the carbs, but if it did, then it would be helpful also for dosing, right? You would be able to decide, as long as it's reliable, which I guess it needs to be if it's FDA cleared, then will help you decide how much to dose. That would be nice.
I think that's what they're running into. I think that's why it's not in there. There's no dosing recommendations in there right now, because all of a sudden then that is medical advice. And then you need to be approved in certain ways, because you can't have people going out taking insulin based on your thing and it being inaccurate.
Yeah, it is the same with the food logging app that I'm using that we talked about last time, that, you can snap the picture. It tells you how, what food it is. That one actually also tells you the carb count or fat and protein grams in that meal. But you're anyway not allowed to make dosing decisions. Like, the app is not for you to help you with or give you any dosing recommendations. It only, AI tells you the carb count, but you're still not supposed to dose insulin based on that information, because it's not like cleared for that purpose, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I guess Dexcom is maybe like one step behind. So I guess that bringing the carbs in should not be that difficult, because others are already doing it.
I don't know. I've tried other apps, and maybe you have better experience than I did. And I was so impressed with its ability of like recognizing what food it was, even like weird. Like, I remember going to a Thai restaurant where everything is beautiful and it looks interesting, but it's also all just thrown in a bowl. And I took a photo of it, and it was like, yes, this is this, this is this, this is this, this is it, and even got it down to the sauce. I was like, dang, it's good. But then its carb count was like completely bangadoodles, because it didn't know it didn't know the volume.
Right.
Because it did not have a kitchen scale, Tom. That's why.
I understand. By the way, I haven't used it since we last talked about it. On the podcast, I said I will do it, but I was so busy last week that I didn't get to it. So maybe this week.
Those who didn't watch the last episode is going to be like, what the heck are they talking about? So that's a cue. Go back and watch that last episode if you missed that one. No, I think it's really exciting to see the things that are coming up. I think my take on the whole CGM industry, and again, this is Christelle speculating, is that sensors are becoming smaller. They're becoming more alike. They're becoming very similar in accuracy. So I think it's going to end up becoming more of a commodity kind of thing, so that the actual sensors is just a sensor, and what's going to differentiate the different brands is going to be the apps and ultimately also the price. But the price is probably also going to be about the same for all of them. So if they can't compete on the other features, which would be the app, they're going to be outsmarted by their competitors. But that's kind of my take.
I see your point there. I think one more thing I would like to talk about. I'm sure you have something as well that you still want to talk about. But if you don't mind sharing, like, what devices you use to read the data from the sensor, just because G7 can send the through Bluetooth the signal to the phone, the reader, and like basically 3 devices at the same time. I think there's a lot of choice for people to use the phone, a reader, Apple Watch or insulin pump, because some of them also has a display. So like you can use all these devices, and you can actually use them at the same time, right? Up to 3 at the same time. So that I didn't do that much, but but there is an option to use the phone at the same time to have the readings on the watch. So when you leave the phone at home, you go for a walk with the watch, you still have the readings on the watch, and then maybe you also have the tandem pump in the pocket. If you forget the watch, you will still have the readings on the pump, which is I think pretty amazing. You don't have to switch between them; it just goes right away. So what are you like? Which interface are you using the most?
Basic, Tom. I am only using one of the 3 Bluetooth connections. I feel very basic right now, and that's to my phone. I do have the receiver. I remember I went, and the reason why I got it was a lot of the folks commenting on my Dexcom G7 videos were telling me that you got better reception with the receiver. So that's why I got it, and then they kind of fixed the product, and I was like, okay, I don't need it anymore. But I do understand that some people prefer to have receiver that's not a phone. I think you mentioned at one point as well that if you go on your phone to check your blood sugars, then you start to do all sort of other stuff. So I think for some people, just having the receiver is nice. The receiver works fine. It's a little more basic, I would say. It can't do all the things. If I had an Apple Watch, I would probably link it to that as well. I don't. I have a Fitbit. This is a Fitbit Versa 2. I have my Dexcom G7 readings on here, but that's through a third-party watch face called Glance. And it's a free one, and it's basically just through the Fitbit app. So that's how I get that on there. What else?
So
That's
on the phone, I know in the US, there are these widgets that actually work a lot better than I don't know why, but here in Europe, with the European version of the app, the widgets don't actually work. I tried to set them up many times. I even made a video about it, and then I realized it stopped working at some point. Do you use those widgets? Like, can you see the readings on the lock screen of your phone, for example, or in the car or anything like that?
Yeah. So I do the Hey Siri. See, she doesn't turn on. So I have put a shortcut in my, and I have guides on how to do that on my YouTube as well. But I use the Hey Siri. If I'm driving, for example, which doesn't happen that often because I sold my car. It's very un-American of me. I live in the States and I don't have a car. I'll wild to that. I live in a very walkable area. So, but if I'm driving, for example, or let's say I'm doing the dishes, I don't have my hand, or I'm in the shower. Shower is actually a good, I often use it there. I can just go, hey Siri, what's my glucose? And she will repeat it. In fact, we should read it out loud. So that's a shortcut. I don't know if this is also a thing if you have an Android. I have an iPhone. I want to point that out. Given Hey Siri is an iPhone thing, you can't see that. But on my lock screen, this is my husband and I have my blood sugar showing up over here. That is one widget option. I also have another widget option. So when you open up the screen, there's a big up here in the corner. So I have all the widgets, but that doesn't require an extra Bluetooth. That's still only one Bluetooth. So I'm only utilizing one. Same thing if you want to do share. If you want to share your readings with someone else, I think you share up to, it's a wild amount. Is it up to 12 people? Or is it 6 people?
I don't know.
I don't use that. But you can share your readings with other that does not require Bluetooth. Again, you can have it set to any software like Gluco, any of the pump somewhere software, InPen software, Clarity, that does not require a Bluetooth either. So you can do a lot of things with this data. And,
Right.
okay.
Right. I feel like there is like so many options, and sometimes for me, I tried many things, and then sometimes sticking to the basics is like the most convenient everyday solution. I was using Apple Watch for a while when I was on G7, and it was nice. I think I was just not smart enough to set up my Apple Watch in the way that it would not distract me with millions of others notifications. And I'm now thinking of giving it another try, because I will probably go on the G7 at some point next year. So I have a new strategy for Apple Watch, and that's I will be only using it for the CGM readings, for wireless payments in a store, and I forgot the third thing. Or like for exercise, just to track my steps and my heart rate during exercise. Just like these three things. Because I met a guy at the diabetes conference last week, and he was wearing Apple Watch, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm so excited that I can see the readings on my watch." And I told him, "Hey man, I tried it, but I was getting so many notifications. It's like you just have to set it up the right way, only the things that you want, and not everything. Otherwise, you will go crazy." I think he's also doing the same, and also phone calls from the watch sometimes. But that's it. So I might give it another try because I think it's really, really convenient, and that like it's another way to stay away from your phone. Because oftentimes I go on my phone to look at my glucose, give myself insulin, and then realize I'm doing something completely different that I didn't want to do at all. So I think watch, like having the option to have the direct to watch and leaving the phone completely out of sight, that might be good. I might do it again. Are you when you have the readings on the Fitbit, do you also like leave the phone in the pocket, just look at the watch? Is that kind of the point, or what do you use the watch for?
So I've turned off all the alerts. So I'm not getting any notifications on the watch. I can get a few. I can't get as many as if I had an Apple Watch. So I just have my readings. I have the 3-hour view. I can double click on it. I get a 6-hour view, and I have the blood sugar. And for me, it's just helpful, especially if I'm out walking. I don't want to have to pull out my phone all the time. Often my phone is like in a purse or something. Just being able to glance down on my glance. The watch face called glance. There's a lot of glance there. Just to have to look down, know where I'm at, and if I need to act is really, really helpful. It's funny. This watch kind of decided that it was done with life last week, and it just stopped working. And I was like, oh my God, this sucks. I need to go get something else. I've been looking at an Apple Watch. For me, the Apple Watch major downside is how expensive it is. I think it's too expensive. I'm very cost conscious, and I think it's an absurd amount of money for a watch. Yeah, I do. And I think it's a little bit too big, and there's a lot of things. So I put out sort of a help a girl out on Instagram and asked my followers, like, you like it? Is it worth it? And overwhelmingly, people are using it, loves it. There's a few who say, well, battery life can kind of suck. But somebody actually said what you just said. There's a lot of alerts going on. But I think to your point, it's also about adjusting it to your needs. And that's why I really like the G7, because at least in the app, there's a lot of opportunity to customize it to your need. Because that's it. We're not all the same. You have different needs. And if an alert is not helping you, turn it off.
100% agree. So I feel like we have been very, very nice to Dexcom. Now I'm thinking back of our Freestyle Libre 3 Plus episode where I feel we have been quite critical. I think we need to talk about some drawbacks, like what is still not working. Maybe we mentioned it, but like underline what is not working well for us. And so if there's something that drives you crazy still, or something that that we want to point to as a drawback of the system to keep it balanced, I think that would be good time to do it. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I think the main issue for me has been, so I spent 3.5 months away from my home traveling, had CDMs, Dexcom G7 with me for all that period. Most of those were manufactured in the critical time period that we talked about before, where they changed the manufacturing. Hopefully, I won't have the same issues that I had with that stash going forward. But I've had a lot of issues over the last 3.5 months. I had issues with, again, 2 goosenecks. I had issues, actually the last gooseneck was while after I came home, but the first one was while I was traveling. I've had sensors simply just fail. I inserted in and they're just like, yeah, I'm failed, I'm done, I'm out. So no reason. I have had some that were really inaccurate, to the point where I had to aggressively calibrate them. We're talking like 100 milligrams per day later on. I had to aggressively calibrate them. Usually I do that a few times. The sense is like, yeah, I'm probably I'm a lemon. And then they fail and you have to take them off. So all of that, what that does is it creates mistrust. I don't necessarily trust it as much as I did before, meaning I'm doing more finger sticks. I'm a little more cautious, just like looking at a reading, thinking, yes, I'm good to go. And I think that's really problematic for Dexcom. It's kind of like when they first, again, came out with the G7 and it wasn't quite ready with all the sense issues, with all the failed signal. It sticks with people. It's stuck with you. All right. how choppy it was, it stuck with you. That's how you remember it. And what I think from as I see it, it was a fail that Dexcom didn't go out and say, "Hey, we've had a bad bunch. We fixed it. You won't see these issues going forward." But I'm sure that was a business decision, and it wasn't. Again, FDA did not tell them to do a recall, and they did not do a recall. It was not perceived as being bad enough that they needed to do as a pull the product from the market. But I do think there's a little bit there's trust issues definitely in the community as well as far from what I can see. Also, to your point, a lot of people have been complaining online, and when we have a lot of loud voices telling negative experiences, I think that kind of reinforces the skepticism, I would say, among users. Am I going to give up Dexcom? No, I still think it's the best choice, but I would say that would be my main ones.
Thanks for sharing that. There's a couple of things that I was hearing also from the US. It might have been a couple months ago about some sort of like sensor shortage where people were sort of like running short on their supplies or like not being able to get sensors timely. Is that, and I didn't see anything like that here in Europe. It's definitely not with G6, but is it still the case, or do you have any like insights into that? If this is already resolved, or is it still a potential issue?
It's such an interesting topic because it did come up at one point that there was a bit of a sensor issue. It's a while back though. I have not had an issue. However, I had a story here. So I've been testing out the FreeStyle Libre 3 clip as well. So as you know that I also did videos of that. So I went to the pharmacy and was like, "Hey, today I want to pick up FreeStyle Libre 3 Plus." He's like, "I can't give you those. We're back ordered." That was my usual pharmacy. He's like, "We're back ordered. I can't give you that. I can give you Dexcom G7." And I'm like, okay. I kind of concluded because then I went to I have a few pharmacies that I like, local pushers, I guess, in the area where I go. And I went to the other one and she's like, yeah, I can give you FreeStyle Libre 3. I don't have Dexcom G7. That's a back order, y'all. So it depends on I think it also depends on the pharmacy. And I was going to like break brand case. Some people, when they reached out to me and said, "Hey, there's a sensor shortage in my area," what I recommend you do those is like call around to other local pharmacies, try online pharmacies. So in the States, it does depend a little bit on what your insurance is okay with. Some insurance companies will only allow you to pick up in one place, which can also make it a little bit challenging. But if you can, then shop around. It might be more of if you're still having an issue, it might be more of a pharmacy issue than an actual Dexcom shortage issue.
So it's not like with toilet paper during COVID. Because if it was, then we should also tell people like don't take all the toilet papers at home because other people also need it. No, I'm just joking. Any other drawbacks you would point out? Because I think I don't really have anything else that I haven't mentioned.
Last one is this is an expensive device. We all know that. So I would say one drawback and then one positive. So one drawback is that whereas with the Dexcom G6, although not FDA cleared, not recommended, blah, 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 you can restart the sensor. You can't do that with the Dexcom G7 sensor. At least not yet. Nobody have figured out how to crack that code yet. Not to my knowledge. I don't know if you've heard anything, but no, the G7 is like a worn and done, and then you have to take it off. So I would say that's this last one. But another upside is if you want to try Dexcom G7 or Libre 3 for that matter, you still need a prescription in the States. It is a prescription device. But if you want to try it out, you can go to the manufacturer website, get a coupon, you get your first sensor free.
It's a good tip. I think then of course there is an alternative, like over the counter for people with type 2. The Stelo is an alternative that's like a cheaper when the cost is an issue. So, but I guess people already know that. I just wanted to mention that it's not like the only solution. There are also other brands. So
yeah, I mean,
but it is
all the alarms and all of that.
Yes, but it's a thing that measures glucose. It's just like a alternative that might work for some other people, but obviously not a replacement with all the features. One more thing I wanted to add, because you were talking about the receiver. And I wanted to say this and then I forgot. I think one advantage of the receiver for those people who are a little bit paranoid about, Dexcom or other companies having all your data and it's somewhere, on the internet or on the cloud. I think that's one of the benefits of the receiver because it's not connected to the internet unless you connect it to the internet with a cable. So like the data is actually stored in the device itself and it's sort of offline. So if someone is worried about companies using their data, this is like a little bit of a more like offline solution that is locked in your room, because whenever you are in the G7 app and like receiving the data on the phone, that gets saved on the cloud, as far as I'm aware, and that works like that with pretty much any other CGM that's running through the app. So that's the last, I guess, benefit of the old school technology. I think this was a great chat about G7. Thanks for bringing me up to date on some of those things, Crystal, because as I said, I haven't used it for a while. Might be going back to it and not going away from Dexcom, definitely. Any closing remarks from you?
Well, I mean, I would love to hear any viewer, any watcher's experience, of course. Like, have you experienced bad sensors, good sensors, sort of what are, or maybe rather, I would really like to hear some pro tips on how we optimize our use of Dexcom G7. Because I think a lot of the factual things we know and other issues we know, but I'm sure there's some smart people out there who has some tricks, in their bag that you and I don't know and that we can all apply to get a better experience using Dexcom G7.
Yeah, great. Definitely. Please put them in the comments. We would love to learn that. And yeah, we would love to have you back next time. I think we should be back in 2 weeks with another episode. So if you want to be notified by YouTube, just subscribe and ring the bell and you get a notification and we'll be back. Have a good day. Ciao.
Bye bye.